engine, an add-on all-wheel drive system, and it also has all of the bells and whistles. This particular car is pretty much fully loaded out, so the retail price is going to come right around $35,000 in US currency. Taking a look at the front, we've got the adaptive LED headlights with the LED daytime running lamps. You can see the rather large Mazda logo. Once again, I believe is also the radar sensor for the adaptive cruise system and braking guard. Other than that, handsome vehicle, nicely proportioned, nicely sized wheels. Excuse the dirt, I've been having a little bit fun with this thing. Let's take a look inside the trunk. First thing you notice, the trunk is well sized. The wheel wells do protrude a little bit into the trunk area, but otherwise it's quite deep. Has a nicely carpeted floor. Have a compact spare, which is nice to see these days. Parcel cover. Overall, nice looking. Inside the vehicle, take a look under the hood. You can hear the audible warning telling me that the engine's running and the key is outside of the vehicle. It's always a good feature with these keyless go systems. Let's take a quick look inside, shall we? All right, well, Mazda has a well-earned reputation of being a real driver's car. They cater well to the drivers by making cars with excellent ergonomics, good chassis dynamics, and overall, you take whatever car Mazda is competing in, and they do a good job of making the most enjoyable or a very well driver-oriented vehicle. And this car is really no exception to that. If you look around the cockpit, the ergonomics are fantastic. The driving position is good. The gauges are very clear, very legible, very functional. Has a nice steering wheel. Good grips for the thumbs here overall. Shifter is nice. One glaring oversight, which I'm surprised Mazda does not offer with this vehicle, are shift paddles, but otherwise very well done, very well executed in terms of ergonomics. But that's not to say the cockpit couldn't be improved on in any way. So where Mazda doesn't quite do as well as some of the other vehicles is some of the fit and finish items. So I've noticed that the plastics, certainly around the steering wheel area, are often a little bit, let's say, sharp, not as finished as nice as they could be, but that's kind of a minor complaint. You're looking at the rest of the vehicle, the layout, the HVAC system is very usable, very easy to use. The infotainment system has a rotary knob, which you interface with, which works quite well. I think it's on the low end of the driver distraction scale. I prefer it over a touchscreen setup, so we can hit the home button here. Go over to navigation. The navigation system is pretty basic, but it's functional. It's not the most glamorous system on the road, but overall, I think Mazda does a great job of an easy to use, quick to learn, and not laggy system that does a good job of not taking the driver's attention away from the real task at hand, which is driving. Engine itself, 2.5 liter Sky Active unit, 184 horsepower, as I explained before. It is a little bit buzzy. The Mazda is not the most refined car in the world, so it's not quiet and as smooth as it possibly could be, but that, once again, that's a rather small complaint, and certainly compared to other vehicles in the segment, I don't think it's significantly lagging behind. We have a nice set of USB connections here, and also an SD card slot. Seat heater is here. The seats themselves, I really do like them. They're well supported. They have nice deviated color stitching trim here. The regular controls for the windows and the mirrors are right as you would expect them. We have nice thumb controls here for the volume, for the information on the driver's computer here. We have distance adjustment for the radar guided cruise control, as well as the on and off switches for the cruise control system. Shift knob, nothing new here. Manual mode, move it to the left, with kudos to Mazda for getting the orientation here correct. Upshift is pulling back and downshift is pushing forward. Sport button is here to engage the sport mode in the transmission. Once again, it'd be nice to have some shift paddles here, but a minor complaint to a otherwise very well executed cockpit from the ergonomic standpoint. Okay, let's go for a drive. Continuing with the driver-oriented design of this Mazda CX-5, the steering weighting is quite good. I wouldn't call it quick on center, but it is a nicely weighted steering setup that does feel responsive. The suspension does strike a great balance between handling and comfort. Brake feeling is good. It's a moderately firm pedal. Overall, you can tell that Mazda put a lot of effort into making this not drive like a typical boring CUV. Transmission is definitely a good point in this vehicle. It's quick to upshift and downshift. It's predictable. It doesn't seem to get confused or doesn't seem to give any sort of unwanted hesitation. Sport mode also offers the ability to hold a gear a bit longer and quicker downshifts. Overall, no complaints with the 6-speed automatic transmission. The engine, I would say, provides an adequate level of power. It's not a fast vehicle, but for the segment, for the purpose of the vehicle, it does just fine for itself. sport mode. See, it automatically downshifts. The radar cruise control function works pretty well in this vehicle. You have, of course, the adjustable following distance. As typical in this segment, it's not a complete stop and go system, meaning it will disengage once you get down to about 20 miles per hour or so. So it's really more useful while you're moving. It's not a system you're going to use in stop and go traffic very often. The interior materials themselves are okay. They're not class leading, but they're certainly not anything that's going to bother you too much. As I mentioned before, the fit and finish on some items, the finishing of some of the plastic edges could be improved. The fit of some of the panels isn't perfect, but that's really not a big deal on a vehicle like this. set the speed for the active cruise control, the radar guided cruise control. Have it set at 45 miles per hour. And it does a good job of following the vehicle in front of me without being too nervous, making too many speed adjustments. Otherwise, it's a pretty natural driving from the vehicle itself. You don't feel like you have to override what the vehicle is doing. The car will be slowing down. The system is braking. There we go, it's canceled. The optional adaptive LED headlights on the Mazda CX-5, they generally work pretty good. You can see that the beam pattern is nice and crisp, good even coverage, nice and bright. However, the convenience features associated with this system could definitely use some improvement. Right now we have the automatic high beam assist on, and I've found that it tends to bounce between the on and off positions even when there's no cars in the area. That can be very frustrating because right now I'd really like to have the high beams on, but the system can't make up its mind on what it wants to do. So Mazda, you could definitely improve this feature of the car. In addition to the spotty performance of the automatic high beam assist, the regular automatic on-off of the headlights could also be improved. I found that during the sunset hours, the system tends to bounce between the on and the off settings as it just can't make up its mind on when to turn on and stay on. The hysteresis probably needs some adjustment and the system is a bit too sensitive. So in order for these automatic convenience systems to really work well instead of being just check boxes on a spec sheet, I think Mazda needs to spend some time studying some of these electronic assist systems, especially with some of the higher end vehicles that seem to do it a little bit more smoothly than what they have going right now. Another refinement issue. The steering stops come to an end with a real clunk. Once again, priorities. Mazda's put their effort into making a driver-focused vehicle, perhaps skimping a little bit on some of the refinement or extras, but at this price point, I would prefer to have the driver-oriented features and design over a little extra luxury. If you want luxury, you can go up a price point into something like a Q5 or X3. The Mazda reminds me a lot of a budget-oriented Q5. The handling is similar, driver-focused. Overall, if you don't want to spend the money on a Q5, I think the CX-5 is a great compromise. You're still getting a fantastic vehicle with a lot of the features, but at a lower price point. Try the manual shifting. Overall, I really like the Mazda CX-5, especially in the higher end trim like this. I think it would be one of my top 2 or 3 picks for the mainstream compact crossover sport utility. It offers good styling, good packaging, most important to me, a driver-oriented setup in terms of the ergonomics, in terms of the driving experience. Just because you want a practical or need a practical vehicle doesn't mean it needs to be boring to drive. And with Mazda, it's something that you can definitely drive every day and not be completely bored out of your mind. And I appreciate all of the extra features of ergonomics, the legibility of the gauges, the usability of the infotainment system and the HVAC. Actually has decent seats. Overall, if you like your sports car on the weekends, but you need something to haul around the kids midweek, all-wheel drive is nice for the winter climates that many of us live in. I think this is a fantastic pick. As with anything, though, there certainly are some fair criticisms for it. The refinement is lacking in a few areas. The fit and finish could be a little bit better. Overall, the doors and some of the body parts of the vehicle, I don't want to say flimsy. I think that's a little bit too harsh, but it definitely does not feel like a solid vehicle. Or not to say it's unsafe. Mazda has great safety scores. It's just, it doesn't feel as substantial as some other vehicles in the segment. And the refinement could be better on some things. The car could be a little bit buzzy at times. Some of the features don't feel fully finished. For example, the automatic high beam assist gave me a lot of false intervention, and the blind spot assistant sporadically gives you false warnings, and has a lot of features, but you can tell that they're not as fully developed as it would be on a more expensive vehicle. So that's one thing to consider when you get all of these luxury features on mainstream vehicles versus the higher end vehicles. You usually get a better usability and a more finished vehicle performance with the higher end vehicles. Rear backup cam has a nice wide angle view, crisp, clear picture. Occasionally you do feel a little bit of torque steer and front wheel spin out of the vehicle. It does have a all-wheel drive system, which is essentially an add-on system, meaning it's a front-wheel drive based vehicle with an all-wheel drive powertrain added to the back, but it is a system that's not as proactive as some others, meaning it does occasionally feel like a front-wheel drive vehicle. It's a minor complaint on this type of vehicle. It's not a big deal, but it is something that I do notice and something I would prefer automakers would address. If I want an all-wheel drive vehicle, I want something that really feels like an all-wheel drive vehicle. It doesn't feel like a front-wheel drive vehicle that occasionally has all-wheel drive assistance. Wheel spin and axle hop off the line. 0 to 60 from magazine reviews come in right around 7.5, 8 seconds. Plenty of power for everyday driving. So Mazda, I really like the CX-5, and I hope you can continue making these driver-focused and driver-oriented cars in the future.